Okay, people, I'm back again to the Kenobi podcast. Now, listen, before you flip me, let me say this to you. I'm going to stay on Daystar for a little bit longer because you see, like my podcast influencers say, and I've heard them say this, I heard some of them say, I've been called to be the truth teller. God called me to be this truth teller. I heard Joel Osteen say, I'm not a turn and burn kind of guy because God didn't give me that niche. Okay, we all got our own niches. And like Paul said, one's got an arm, one's got a leg, one's got a kneecap. Well, for this right now, for a little bit of a season, I feel like I've been called not to burn the house down, but maybe to expose a wall here or there, maybe to open up a window so we can get some fresh air in. Now, you may feel like, I don't need to hear this guy. I used to find when I used to be a person in a pew, that when my pastor was saying something that in the back of my mind, I was saying to myself, I don't need to hear that. That was the very thing that God wanted me to hear. Now, and there was times when I felt like I didn't need to go to church. I come to realize that was the day that if I pushed myself through it, I got a blessing there because I needed to be there on that day. So if you're feeling right now that you don't need to listen to this and you're feeling like scrolling up or scrolling down or scrolling to left or right, you know what? Maybe you need to stick with me just a little bit longer. Maybe we can reason together. Maybe we can get to a place where you come to understand me and I can understand you. Maybe it won't be about us calling each other names and fighting, but even if we agree to disagree, we will demonstrate the authenticity of Christian conflict resolution and love. Okay? Now, before I start on what I'm going to start on today, because I know some people are going to get upset, I'm going to ask you a question. Have you been asking yourself why you're even in this generation to hear about Daystar? Are you even asking yourself, why am I alive right now to even take part in this? The destruction of a Christian organization that has brought millions probably to the throne of Christ, into the kingdom. Why are you the ones right now living in this generation to witness the deconstruction of a Christian model family as they were presented? Let me give you a little bit of a clue. I'm going to start out with a Bible verse in 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I'm starting at verse 6. See, Paul is trying to explain why these things happen. Why you're here right now for this moment in time, for this moment in history, at Daystar's collapse and implosion, and what it means to you and what it means to those around you. Now, Paul says in verse 6, now these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. Maybe these things are happening right now as examples to show you through Joni and Rebecca and Rachel and JW what not to do. Maybe these things are happening right now, even to show you, like Johnny and Jonathan and Susie, what not to do, or what to do when you're standing up and given a choice between righteousness and the right house to live in. Maybe, I don't know, but I'll keep going. Do not be idolatrous as some of them were, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. We should not commit sexual immorality as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 of them died. We should not test Christ as some of them did and were killed by snakes, and do not grumble as some of them did and were killed by the destroying angel. You see, these things happen, verse 11, these things happen to them. They happen to them. These things happened to Jonathan. These things happened to Susie. These things happened to Joni, to Doug, to Lisa, to Rebecca, to JW, to Rachel, to Joshua. These things happened to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us, on whom the culmination of the ages has come. So if you, watch this, if you think you are standing firm, Be careful that you do not fall. You see, these things happened for a reason. These things are happening. You are witnessing the implosion of one of the most powerful Christian networks of evangelism that was ever built in our age. We've already seen the implosion. Maybe you were sleeping, but TBN has imploded. It is not the TBN that it used to be. Now we are seeing Daystar with our very eyes implode. We need to look at this and be careful to understand why we're here. What are we going to learn from this? For you, for me, for the body. Because it's not by chance that Daystar is imploding. It's not by chance that TBN has imploded. It's not by chance that CBN is what it is. It's not a candle to what it used to be. There is something satanic at work, but God is allowing it to happen so that these things will be as an example to us of what not to do. Now, let me tell you what I want to talk about. If you're still here, can you send me a comment? Could you like and subscribe? Could you share this? I know you probably will share it today because I'm sure they're gonna come after me. They're gonna come after me and they're gonna come after Kenobi. But it is what it is, okay? I'm gonna share with you today because I wanted you to see it because you see when I started to try to explain, yesterday how I felt that this wasn't being handled by the podcasters, as I tried to explain to you why I felt this is not the time nor place for the way that they are behaving. I was the one that was looked at as the troublemaker, if you will, in the family. I'm trying to flip you on this one or flip you on that one. I'm not. But these things are happening. Maybe to show us what not to do in a case like this. And maybe they're not looking at that. Maybe they are feeling like, you know what? Like I said, this is what I'm called to do. But I'm going to challenge that right now. And I'm going to challenge it with my own personal life because I'm going to share with you some things about my life you may not be aware of. It was funny. The other day I was mentioning something on another podcast that we had, and I was trying to explain to someone that I knew some people and they think I didn't. But nevertheless, you're going to feel like I'm wrong. But these things are happening so that we can learn. Now, tonight, Laura Lynn was on, and I like listening to Laura Lynn. I think she's sweet. I think she's nice. I liked it back and forth between her and her husband, JT. And I was there and applauded her when she walked away from Daystar and took that contract and ripped it up, stood on principles and walked away. I didn't like how her past was brought up in her life. And she didn't run from it. She came out and said, this is my book, my testimony. I made mistakes. I've already shared that. But then again, like I told you, I started to feel a little differently about how this was going down. It was becoming to be a everyday situation. And maybe God called her to do that. But as I look around in the body of Christ, and there's so much going on in the body of Christ, and as I look around in the world that we're living in, as we're facing the imminent return of Jesus Christ, there's also more to be talked about and discussed. Would you not agree to that? That there's more for us to be talked about and discussed. But now I'm going to stick to Daystar because I'm trying to reason with you. I'm trying to get you to see my perspective and our Kenobi and my point of view. Okay? So she had her show today, and she brought up some things. So I'm going to show you what she said, and I'm going to give you my point of view. Now, you may not agree with I want to discuss it with you. I want you to discuss it with me. I don't want you to run from me. I don't want you to clip me off. I want you to remember that scripture verse, play it over and over, read it yourself, but I want you to show me why these things are happening for me too. Okay? So here's her first clip today, and we're going to talk about it.
Chasm, and there are decisions that need to be made by the board. And so that does lead us to a few things that I would like to share. I would like to first say that I see that a lot of people out there are talking about this. And
Yeah.
here is Marlon, a guy I like to weigh in on his take on Candace Owens usually, but take a look at what he had to say.
Take a look at this.
And I will be giving my take on the life and legacy, apparently, of Miss Joni Lamb. And that means everything from infidelity that was unaddressed and apparently just left to be fine with everybody, to the unwillingness to address situations with her son and the apparent issues with the family messing with the kids. They didn't even tell her son. He found out through the board. Jonathan found out through the board that she passed.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is wild.
Yeah. I agree.
Everything about the life that she lived was not in line with the gospel, was never in line with the word. Yet and still, she was called a minister.
Stop right there. Now I'm going to say this. What do you think about what he just said? Now you see her respond. It's almost it's a subtle agreement. But let me tell you something. I don't know this guy, but I'll tell you what. What he just said. This is the one thing I don't like. That these people are making me defend Joni. You're making me defend a position of somebody that did do wrong. Only because it's happening as an example to show us if we're doing wrong and what we need to stop doing. Because if you think you're standing firm, be careful. Now, that's a dangerous thing that guy said. I don't know, but listen, let's be honest about it. How can he say that her whole life was a facade? Her whole life was not in the gospel. Basically, she lived a fraud from the moment she said she gave her heart to Christ, from the moment she lived all her life to all that she's accomplished. It was nothing. And he's sitting in a seat that he does not have the right to sit in. I'm sorry, but that's not the call that we get to make. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that her entire life did not line up to the gospel. Oh, the way she moved out, the way she finished the race. Now, he can make a judgment call on that. I'll give you that much. But he has no right to say that her entire life in the kingdom of God was meaningless. Now, let's be honest about it. Nobody wakes up, and I'm a pastor. I used to be one. I've seen pastors fall, and I've seen pastors rise. I've seen pastors fall that should stay down and rose again. I've seen pastors fall that fell and never got back up because they shouldn't have. But I'll tell you this much about all of them. None of them started out saying to themselves, I'm going to be a fraud. None of them started out saying, I'm going to build this up for the kingdom of God. I'm going to save souls for the kingdom because it's all a fraud. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for money, for power, for notoriety. It didn't start out that way. It got messed up along the way, but it didn't start out that way. And I'm going to say this dude is wrong. You know why? Because I've seen what Joni did and Marcus did. Marcus made mistakes. But I don't think Marcus Lamb woke up one day when he got a vision to start Daystar and said to himself, I'm going to build this network for the kingdom of God and bring souls in from all over the world because I'm fraudulent. Somewhere along the line, it happened. Somewhere along the line, he committed adultery. Somewhere along the line, the prosperity thing went too far. Somewhere along the line, it happened. But he did turn back. Okay, fine. But even if he wouldn't have turned back, I wouldn't have said that his whole life was a fraud. Okay? Jesus never discounted the work that someone did. Even when he said to them, the guy said, listen, I built your churches. I did this for you. I brought souls into the kingdom. Jesus didn't say your whole life was a fraud. He said, I didn't know you. I didn't know you. Everything you did, I will take. For every soul that came in, I will receive. See, what that gentleman is saying is that none of that meant anything. He's not in the right seat to do that. He doesn't have the right to do that. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm disappointed that she showed that. Now, you can only show something like that if you're in agreement with what the person is saying. And that's not cool. That's not helping the situation. That's not. I don't care what you say. It's not helping the situation. But I shall continue. Now let me know. I'm asking you again. Let me know if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong. I want it. Please. I will continue.
There's very strong opinions coming out on all sides, and it's not shocking that people are at times there's strong words, even strong words coming against myself. I have been, equated with Candace Owens and her attacks. One big difference.
Listen, first of all, I'm not attacking her. I'm not attacking her. I'm calling some stuff out. She calls stuff out. Ray calls stuff out. Everett calls stuff out. Everybody calls stuff out. But see, you're calling stuff out on somebody that was dead wrong. Now, you can call me out for saying that my opinion is wrong. You can call me back out and say, you know what, he didn't have a right to say that. But when you put yourself out there and you do things, people are going to say stuff. That's the price we pay for putting ourselves on the front line for the kingdom. Is what God said, Paul said, we're nothing but a bunch of spectacles. That's what we got to expect it. So I'm not attacking. I'm just saying I think that was wrong. I've got a right to say I think that was wrong. I don't think that gentleman was right. He has a right to say that. And if something happens, and God forbid, this guy makes a mistake tomorrow, how many people is she gonna play and say his life didn't mean anything for the kingdom? It's not right. It's not helping the situation. And it's that kind of venom. It's that kind of venom that is turning this thing and still turning it. We're not trying to go back and make it better. We're not trying to smooth it over. Do you really think this is going to help? I will continue.
I do believe is that there's an element of complete honesty here.
I'm not going to say she hasn't been. She's been completely honest. She's brought the facts. She's brought the receipt. I do question the objectivity, though. I do question at some point, to me, this became personal. Because Joni attacked personally. Joni attacked you like Joni attacked Ray. Joni attacked everybody. And at some point, I think people took it personal. Now, I'm not there, only they can examine themselves. We all are human. We all have a carnal nature. We all get in the flesh. I think at some point it got to her personal. But I'm not saying she's not being honest. And I'm not saying she's not bringing receipts.
We don't say anything that isn't true. This has been a very difficult situation since a year and a half ago, since November, basically, of 2024, when everything came out. Some people also online are blaming me for Joni's sickness.
Well, whoever's doing that is wrong. She's not God. She's not God. She didn't make Joni sick. Maybe God did make Joni sick. I know people are saying that it's God's judgment. I know she's alluded to that. I know a lot of the other ones have alluded that this is, I see it all over, that God brought down the house on Joni because of what Joni did. Okay, there's allusions to that. And there's clearly scripture that attests to the fact that there's a correlation between sin and sickness. I don't know which one it was, but Joni's dead. That's the bottom line, and it's not her fault. And if anybody's saying it's her fault, it's wrong. If people are saying that, listen, when you knew that woman was fighting for her life, that maybe you could have changed your tone. Maybe you could have, instead of hammering Joni, maybe you could have made, as Paul say, a passionate appeal with the ministry of reconciliation to applaud and plead with her, to make right with her son. Maybe that could have been done differently, but I'm not blaming her.
And what we have and are coming to find out is that Joni knew that she had something very, very wrong. And I've heard a lot about what that is, but I will just say Joni knew it was serious, it was life-threatening, life-altering, and she knew about it basically as soon as she let Jonathan go.
Okay. See, there we go. You're making a prophetic correlation that the judgment came upon Joni when she kicked out her son and flipped her and destroyed their lives, kicked him out of his own heir apparent right. When you covered up the essay of her granddaughter, the hammer of God was brought down on the house of Joni Lamb. Okay. And you're saying that Joni knew for all this time that she was possibly dying, and she never once thought about making right with her son? Well, I'm going to say this again. If Joni did that, Joni's in a serious place right now. And my God, wouldn't that be horrible? Let's think about that. Let's say she's right. Let's follow that trail. That means that Joni had anger in her heart and unforgiveness in her heart from her son from the moment she got a diagnosis to the moment she died. Where is Joni Lamb right now? If that's correct, she's in hell. All right. Now, if that's correct, unless the Bible's a lie, she's in hell. Now, peradventure this with me. Marcus is in heaven. Joni is in hell. They both started Daystar together. That's some serious business. If Joni went out like that, that's serious business. But it also speaks to a bigger picture. And here's another side of this. Laura Lynn's getting some information from somebody. And Laura Lynn is getting some confidential, intimate details about this from somebody inside the camp. I don't know if it's coming in through back channels between Jonathan and Susie, but if it is coming through back channels, and those people are watching her, which I'm sure they are, and they're hearing what she said, and somebody saying, well, you know what, I told this to Susie, or I told this to Jonathan, look what they've done. It's not going to help the situation. See, something like that was just said, who does that help? Who does that hurt? It doesn't help Jonathan. It doesn't help Susie. It doesn't help the grandchild. It doesn't help the grandson. It hurts Daystar. It hurts Joni, Rebecca, JW, Rachel, and Joshua's already been hurt. But it's not helping the house. It's not about Daystar anymore. It's about the family. It's not helping the family. My point of view, I shall continue.
When he was removed from being the president, and when there was an attack on Jonathan, she was given some very difficult news from the doctor. And this was long before anything went public.
I will also say this then. I will also say that if this is true. If that's true, then every single prophet that walked onto the set of Daystar and gave Joni a word, knowing that they were speaking for God, that they were signing a letter with God's name on it, words to Joni, that didn't call out the fact that she was dying, as a prophet went to Hezekiah and said, get your affairs in order. Shame on them, and they're going to have to give an account. Those prophets are going to have to all give an account that God wouldn't speak to them right then and there and say, Joni, get your affairs in order. They're going to have to give an account for that if that's true.
With respect to what Marlon was saying there about how Jonathan found out from the board, this is going to be problematic, I think, in days to come, because there is an uprising and an upset as to why that is the case.
Okay, listen, it's wrong. Nobody's going to deny it's wrong, and everybody could be upset for Jonathan that he didn't have a chance, and shame on his mother. Shame on his mother. Shame on his sisters. Shame on his brother-in-law. not the one that is guilty. But shame on JW. Because they all got to give an account for that. But this uprising that's happened, these things happen as examples of us of what not to do. What uprising are we looking for? We're looking to burn down the house of Lamb. We're looking to burn down Daystar. Is that what this uprising is, to bring it down? Is that what we're supposed to be doing? At the heart of any Christian ministry is that we are reconcilers. At the beginning and the middle of anything we do, it's got to be the heart of reconciliation. I shall continue.
What was everybody thinking, and why was Jonathan not notified that his mom indeed was this ill? This was not a back fracture of the L15 or whatever that was that Doug had to say. Doug Weiss, how much of a role did he actually...
Hold up. I'm going to ask a question too here. And maybe she can ask the question to Jonathan and Susie. When he heard that about the L fracture, okay? Or when, see, this is what I get frustrated about. You people are making me flip the script and look at it from Joni's eyes. That's the thing about having a point of view. I'm looking at it all. I'm not just looking at it from Jonathan or all these. I'm looking at it from the circle. So now you're forcing me in a circle to look at this from Joni's side. But let me ask you a question. And maybe this is not something she said. I find it strange she hasn't said this. But when Jonathan found out, because Laura Lynn said a year ago that Joni had something serious. Now, I'm sure that Jonathan watches the show, even if she didn't tell Jonathan, or maybe Jonathan got it from a back channel, that there was something serious. How many times did he try to reach out to his mother? Maybe he did. But why are you not telling us that too? Did he try and Susie try to call her, to text her, to write her letters in the mail that she left unanswered? Was there any attempt on his part, knowing his mother was going down, if you will, to hammer at her, Mom, listen to me. Mom, listen to me. I'm just asking a question. I've never heard her say that. I never heard her say that throughout all of this. And again, I agree. He's a righteous man, a good man, a godly man. So is Susie. I think Susie's got a bad rap and people jumped on her for nothing. But my point is, has there been any time throughout this entire year that he and Susie tried everything they could? Did they send pictures of the kids? Did they write letters to Joni? Please talk to me. Did they text her? Did they contact Rebecca and say, please have Mom text me? Tell Mom to open my letter. Did they try everything they could do to reach Joni? Now, Joni was wrong. She's the mother. They're both adults, though, and they're both supposed to be Christians, right? I don't like taking up for Joni, but I've got to look at this from both sides. These things happen. Why? Listen, don't leave it up to the person if you messing around and you hurt somebody. You better learn from Joni. You better learn from Joni. Let's keep going.
Play in this. What we have come to understand, allegedly, is that Doug Weiss was given complete control over the health. He was made to be in what we might call the executor of the health part of Joni's life. He was able to make the decisions. And so he, more than anyone, knew all about it. And it really does lead me to have some questions. I don't think anybody is understanding how it is that Doug Weiss was lost for words.
Hold it. I got to go back on that because that's some serious business. And again, listen, let's put it in perspective. And I don't like this. Doug is a scoundrel. He's a cad. I don't like looking at this situation from this angle. But if we are going to be fair, if we are going to be impartial, and if we are truly going to be reconcilers, we have to look at the whole thing. Of course, he was making decisions. That's her husband. There's not a court in the world that would tell him he's not responsible for making decisions for his wife's illness, especially if she's incapacitated. And if she wasn't incapacitated, if she said, that's my husband and I'm going to let him call the shots, who could stand in the way? That's not anything that's skullduggish. Unless you're alluding to, and I know that there's parts of this that I'm not even going to play because I think that there will only stir the pot. There's some allusions to that Doug may have allegedly committed some foul play. That Doug may have allegedly made some bad calls that resulted in his sudden death. Allegedly he's doing this because I've seen also, I didn't put it because I didn't think it's the right thing to do. Documents that show property was turned over to Doug. This is another illusion. That's not cool. I mean, maybe she's not coming out and saying it, but listen, the seeds planted and that, you know what, this could be something serious. Just like there was an allusion to Joni and Joshua being in the room with Marcus when he passed away. That's just like the illusion that was told that every time Joshua was in the room, Marcus' oxygen level would drop. And when Susie was in the room, it came up. There's allusions to foul play here. And I don't think we should make these illusions. I think if you feel like that's the case, then just say, I think there's something that's under the hand here. But don't, because what you're doing, that's causing this uprising. These illusions could be causing uprisings, and we don't need that. We need to sit, at the heart of it, we're reconcilers. At the heart of it, we're reconcilers. We're not into playing illusions. We only use allegories in sermons.
Basically in his post. And I'd like to show it to you here. Dr. Doug Weiss, 3 days ago, basically, this was his post on his channel. He says, yesterday I lost my wife, Joni. There are no words that really capture the weight of that sentence or the grief that comes with it. There are no words. When was he at a loss for words? Usually in front of a sentence like yesterday I lost my wife, Joni. I mean, in the show, he was tripping over, falling over himself to describe his dear love. I mean, especially in the early days, even known to have mentioned even embarrassing things. And he was not at a loss for words. He had too many words that generally had to be cut out. But he's not a man that's at a loss for words. And yesterday I lost my wife, Joni. There are no words that really capture the weight of that sentence or the grief that comes with it. She was deeply loved. And you have to wonder when you read that, she was deeply loved. Well, by whom? By you? Never once in all of this does he say his extravagant love for Joni was everything to him. How this had been the love of his life. Brown eyes. Nothing. He says she was deeply loved. And the space she leaves behind is impossible again. It's just impossible to put into words. So he's not going to bother much with that.
Listen, this is what I don't like. I don't. See, when Laura does that, she's dropping it. It's a mic drop moment. She's putting the egg on the table and she's letting you pick it up and draw your own inferences with that. She did that when that Joker said what he said about Joni's life. Okay? I don't like people put me in a position to defend the position of Pete or defending position. I can't defend Pete for anything. I will never defend Pete. I mean defend Doug or defend Joni. But I will never defend Pete. Okay? Let's get to it straight. But here's what's wrong. And I'm going to say this for my own personal life. My wife died. Okay? She died suddenly. Didn't see it coming. Happened in the middle of the night. And it broke my heart. I was a mess. I was a mess. I had a nervous breakdown. I had to take medication for years. It broke my faith. It broke my connection to God. God and I had to work all that back. It's a whole personal journey. And even through that journey, I had pastors come to me and tell me that I was taking this grief too far. I had people question my belief in God. I had people question, and I've had pastors tell me, if this would have been my wife, I would have been at a strip club by now. I had them tell me all kind of things. I had them tell me that I was grieving too long. Now, I'm going to say this with all respect. Unless you've been through something like that, you don't have a right to question somebody's grief. You don't have a right to question how they grieve. You don't have a right to question when they grieve or how they choose to grieve. You don't make that call because you didn't go through the amputation. Now, Doug and Joni's marriage was an unholy union that God allowed a marriage covenant to come. And when she died, Doug went through an amputation. It was an unholy amputation, but it was an amputation. Okay? Unless you're allude to, this guy is a jack of all trades, master of none, and he did some serious stuff. You don't get to make that call. You don't, unless you're telling me that behind the scenes, Doug is a mess. You know what? Doug did something wrong, but you don't make that call. I remember Laura Lynn read a letter from a widower who lost her husband that was an open letter to Joni telling Joni she didn't grieve enough. She didn't grieve long enough. And so the woman was a fellow griever who was ministering from that same dark place of that amputation to Joni. Now, Laura has her husband. She doesn't know what it's like. She doesn't know how that feels. And I do not think anyone has the right to question this man's grief. Okay? Unless you're telling me that Doug's a murderer. Unless you're telling me that he did something skullduggery. Unless you can tell me something like that. We don't have the right. Now, I'm going to say this. Doug put himself out there when he put it on public media. But, you see, this is the problem with this whole mess. With this whole mess, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If Doug wouldn't have said nothing, everybody would have found just another reason to hate Doug. And we've got a lot of reasons to hate Doug. So if he would have done nothing, there was nothing that Doug could have wrote that everybody would have been satisfied about. If Doug, we would have went there and Doug would have lavished it with all this love and all this grief and my heart was broken, everybody would have showed pictures of when he said he loved Lisa. We can't, Doug's never going to make us happy. We all don't like Doug. We hate Doug. Doug's not nice. He's a liar. He's a thief. He's an adulterer at heart. We get it. But this, again, because you're hitting at all people that lost somebody. You don't have that right. You don't speak from that place of pain to test that. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I shall move on. I'm just calling it like I am here. You don't want to hear it, but these things happen as a lesson. What are you learning? What are you getting out of this? You may be saying, you're getting that I'm a lunatic still. You're getting that I don't know what I'm talking about still. You're getting that I'm attacking these people. I don't know what you're getting out of it. Whatever you get, and all you're getting, get understanding. Get understanding. I shall continue.
The shock that I have is that there has been no authentic transparency with the family on this entire thing. Why is it, and has it been such a secret? If she were getting help in Mexico, why wouldn't that just be something that the family would share? And it's okay if you don't, but you might tell everybody there's a little bit of a bigger problem than the back issue or that she had strep throat.
I'm going to say two things to that. I agree with you. And the only reason, first of all, a medical condition is really nobody's business. Okay? Rich and powerful people go in the hospital every day, and when they die, they said he died of an unknown condition. Or T.D. Jakes first it was an unexpected medical crisis. People just don't tell. Now, I think that's an oxymoron, and because as a believer, you should be able to go to the saints and pray. If any of you are sick, right? So Joni should have done that. They shouldn't have hid it. They shouldn't have hidden behind this specter of her having a back problem. Everybody could clearly see there was something wrong with her face. They would have been better off saying that. First, they did say it was strep throat. Then they did say it was the back. But you know what? Again and again. Daystar is a public ministry, an international, multinational ministry. It takes donors. It has stockholders, if you will. They had an obligation to tell the stockholders, the donors, what was going on, and they failed in that to do that. Okay? From a donor partner perspective, they let me down. From when Marcus passed away, they showed up, they told us, Marcus kept us abreast. That's what you do to a stockholder, especially if it's a Christian organization. But see, Christian organizations, they have the specter of secrecy. T.D. Jakes goes down. You don't know why this guy had a problem. You see other ministers get sick. We don't know why they had a problem. Pete Evans, somebody steps down. They don't even tell us why they have a problem. It's not just Joni. This is the specter of ministry that lacks transparency because their lives are not transparent before God, so they cannot be transparent before men. That's one reason, but I'll let her get to the other reason in a minute.
The reason is we're a Christian bunch, aren't we? Even those who didn't like Joni would pray harder.
Now, come on now. Come on, let's be honest, Laura. How hard could you pray for Joni Lamb? Were you going to wear your knees out? Was Ray or Everett or anybody else going to wear their knees out? Were they going to bombard heaven for Joni? Were they going to fast for Joni? Now, let's be honest. Let's be honest. But this uprising that's happened over the past year, how many people would have prayed for Joni versus the people that were saying it was God's judgment, so let her die? And now let's be honest, looking at this from Joni's side, and I hate to take this perspective, but it is a full circle point of view. I've got more people out there hating me right now than love me. These people are attacking me. I'm under the gun. I'm under siege. I've been exposed as a horrible mom, as a horrible grandmother, grandparent, as a person that is sanctioning somebody that could have essayed a child. I'm not going to find any goodwill out there in the cold, cruel world. Now, can't you see that perspective too? And can't you see that if she would have publicized this, that media blitz would have been as it was, that it was God's judgment. And I guarantee you, and I'm not saying it, but more prayers went out probably that said, go get her, God. Bring her down so she can repent. That God spare her life. And I'm just being honest. People need to check themselves. And we have to remember, human nature. We got to check ourselves.
They would pray more.
No.
Had they heard there's actually a serious life-threatening, life-altering problem.
I don't believe
it's interesting that was never called on.
Why should it be?
And Joni has known for well over a year. You know that we got wind and words of this because it was said that...
These are back channels. These are dangerous back channels. Now, let's be honest about it. A year ago when she put that out, did that break Joni down? Did that melt Joni's heart? Or probably the enemy used it to harden Joni's heart? Did that soften Joni up to say, I'm facing the inevitable? I need to get right and get my affairs in order? Or did Joni say, you know what? I'm under siege. I will fight to the bitter end. Is your good take?
Her brother's son had been at a family function, I believe, and had told somebody else's son that Joni had had a very bad diagnosis, that it was cancer. And there was no word. Instead, Doug came out, continuing to lie, as he's always done, because that is what Doug Weiss is known best for. Doug Weiss is known for his lying. I have a little video here that
Not necessary. We know Doug's a liar. You're not going to get, by showing us all the lies Doug told, it's not going to bring one more person on the boat of I hate Doug. Doug cannot ever redeem his reputation. We know what he did. We know what he did. But is this helping?
play on the side that can give you some of the remembrances of things that we have gone through this last year, all kinds of things that have been said by Doug that we now, I guess, have to believe he didn't really mean it. He told Jonathan Lamb that you always have butterflies. He talked about all of the recovery that he was going through. Doug Weiss spoke about Green Eyes, their love. She was the greatest thing that had ever happened. And then in the end, when it was very convenient, and his wife that he had loved, the wife of his youth, 36 some odd years, he just simply dumped her. And so knowing that Doug is a liar, I guess it's not surprising that instead of coming forward to speak the truth and coming forward to let people know that perhaps we should be praying, the silence, in actual fact, made everyone look a little bit silly.
I think that the Christian community must, in some response, take some of the blame for that. Only because at some point, it went too far. At some point, we did not execute the ministry of reconciliation. We executed the ministry of judgment. We executed the ministry of accusation. True whether it be. But listen, if you're attacking me, am I really going to come to you and say, pray for me? I mean, let's be logical. Well, they're really going to call up people and say, pray for my mother because she's dying. And by the way, yes, I know you're angry because I threw you out of the NPR. Are you really going to say, please pray for my mother because I know you're angry at me because I called you names on Day Talk? We got to be honest with ourselves. The wheels were down the hill. There was no way to push the goodwill ball back up the hill for Joni. And Joni was not going to believe there would have been goodwill. Now, let's be honest. Joni went out believing she was hated. For her to do that to her son, she went out believing she was unloved, she was not liked, she was disapproved of, and she was evil. That's what she took out with her. And I don't know if I don't know.
When the very day that Joni Lamb dies, the family is on set, smiling, gleeful because everyone's getting their new shows.
Now that seems a little kooky to me. And I'll be honest with you on that one, Laura. That seems a little. When Marcus died, they came out and told us all this restructuring and all that stuff. Everything was in the works. Everything was in the works. And so there's some skullduggery behind the scenes on that. This is a $1 billion company and is going to, listen, at this point, I'm not even talking about Jonathan doing this because it's his rightful. Listen, I would go to court. And I'll tell you why I would go to court. I would go to court to clean up your father's legacy, to make Daystar what it should be for the kingdom of God. I would go to court, if nothing else, to really go to the depths of exposing what Daystar has become. Now that's what I would do. I would go to discovery. I would put it all on the line. I would put it all on the line. And you know what? If you get into a room and they offer you $500 million, take it and do something for the kingdom. Start your own Daystar. Show them how to do it the right way. But that's a little kooky. And that's a little, that was all that maneuvering. That was for Jonathan. That was the board protecting Daystar from the salvo that they foresee coming from Jonathan. Listen, they're not stupid. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that with these letters, he's got a case. They're preparing for it. Everything they do about the order, the shows, all of it is preparing for it. Now, that's the facts. I will continue. Now, I hope you're still with me. I hope you're not hating on me. I hope you're seeing some of this. I hope you are standing firm. I hope you are seeing why these things are happening. I hope you're looking at you too. Maybe there's some things that you felt about. Would you have prayed for Joni? Honestly, would you have liked to have known about Joni? Would you have felt sorrow and pity for her and prayed and besieged heaven for her? Or would you have said, go Jesus, get her? Now that's something we have to examine ourselves about.
Been chosen by the leadership, by the board, by Doug Weiss, who had control of her health at the end, that there would be no asking for prayer for anything more than a back issue with 2 fractures.
It was a lie. They shouldn't have done it. That's just another lie that their clients, their stockholders, their partners are going to say that this is a Christian ministry and you lied. It's going to hurt Daystar's image. It's going to hurt Daystar stock, goodwill, whatever you want to call it. Anyone that's Christian, that's a client there, should do a double take and say, why did you openly lie? But as him being in charge, unless you can say that there was some skullduggery, he legally has the right as her husband to call the shots. That's the bottom line there. And unless you got something on Doug that can allude to that, we can't make that the issue that it was Doug's decision. Because let's face it, there were 2 sisters that both hated Doug too. And if they really wanted to reach out to Jonathan, they would have done it too. And I don't like people trying to put all this on Rebecca and JW like they're so good. They sold out their brother for 30 pieces of silver, and nobody wants to admit that.
I want to show you a clip right now of others that are basically weighing in.
He says in the post that she was deeply loved, all that she did for the kingdom and getting Jesus out there to people. He appreciates the prayers from Christians around the world, and he encourages everybody to keep them coming. That's great. And I have been praying for them. But the way that it was phrased like any other ministry that I have also seen tributes coming in for that said Joni was deeply loved. Basically, it didn't seem very personal to me. This was his wife, who was his everything, and he was, just touting how much he loved her all the time, kind of like Lisa before. And, he says she was deeply loved. Nothing personal in the post. There was no, I love her so much, nothing like that. It was just, she was deeply loved.
I like him, not by Sight Ministries, okay? Now, if I let this play out, Laura's going to say, She's going to drop that mic again with that, All right, let me just say it again. I watch him. He has other subjects that he did at least talk about in the body of Christ. Good guy. But again, and I'm wondering if they ever hear some widower or widow say to them they didn't have the right to make that judgment on that man's grief. I wonder if they're Laura Lynn or him or anybody else who's questioning Doug's motives in this regard will say they're wrong. They don't have that right. You don't know what it's like to lose your spouse, and unless you do, you don't even have the same playing field with my grief. You can't even question my grief. You can't question if I cry, if I don't cry, if I don't seem like I'm caring, if I'm at the funeral and I'm stone-faced, or if I'm crying too much. Let's be honest about it. There was nothing Doug could have said that would have made anybody happy because everybody hates Doug. And we have to be honest with that. And we've got to at least if nothing else, from a widow's perspective, you have to give them that grace. On that regard, you don't have the right to make that call. And I'm going to stick with that. And I hope that somebody says they're wrong. See, this is where you say, these things happen so we will know. I think people need to admit when they make a mistake, too, in this whole thing.
So where was Doug Weiss the day that Joni died? Was he with Joni? Where was he? Because it seemed like everybody was on set. I'm having a hard time understanding that your mother is dying and you all knew it. We didn't. Lord knows. I mean, people were calling for, a wellness check wherever she might.
Now, first of all, I'm going to say a couple of things. Now, see, she said that as a joke. Wellness check. She's talking about Everett. And when Everett was Johnny Lamb dead, can Johnny Lamb go to the back? Listen, that wasn't a wellness check. Now, listen, you get mad at me. You can say I have no right to question what you said. It's your podcast. You can play it off the way you want. But I have to ask the question. How do you feel the day after knowing she died when you did that? Now, I'll say this again. There's some questions to what she's saying that would make sense. Listen, unless they truly were believing that she wasn't going to die, maybe they didn't know it. Maybe she did die suddenly and they were all at the studio. I don't know. There's got to be, and maybe she died a day before it was publicized. Maybe she died a week before. We don't really know when she died. We don't know why they weren't there. Maybe they really didn't believe. Maybe Joni said, listen, y'all get to the studio and do what you got to do. We don't know. But I would like to think if you knew your mother was dying, you'd be at her bedside. My mother lived with me and my wife. She died of dementia. When she was in the hospital, we were there until the bitter end. That's where you should be. Why they weren't there? Are you really telling me that the billion-dollar empire and the facade of Daystar was more important than you being at your mother's bedside? Are you telling me that protecting Daystar, the image and the sheer deceit of power, was more important than you telling your brother you're going to have to answer to God for that? JW, you're going to answer to God for that, Rebecca and Rachel. And let me tell you something. God's going to eat you up until you apologize if that's what happened.
B. My brother, Pastor Ray, a month ago was saying, almost prophetically.
See, that's not cool. He wasn't saying it like a prophet saying, thus saith the Lord, get your house in order. I'm not just, let's see, this is not cool.
That Joni needed to get things right.
Mm-hmm. Maybe she said,
but in the end, we didn't know.
Yeah, maybe it should have been said with some more
Jonathan
compassion.
Lamb didn't know.
Maybe it should have been said with love.
This was devastating to Jonathan and Susie because they got the call. Cold call.
Yes.
We're just calling to let you know that Joni has...
What happened to Jonathan was vile. It was all vile. But let me ask you a question. Please, let me ask you this question now. And I'm trying to phrase this right because I don't want anybody to think I don't love Jonathan and Susie. I never met them, but I do pray earnestly for them. Who did that serve to say that? To put it out there, Susie. We weren't told, but we forgive them. Who did that best serve? And I have to be honest about that. Who does it serve with everybody talking about that? Jonathan doesn't need any more sympathy. He's got sympathy from the whole Christian community, and he deserves it. Sometimes we just have to be quiet, hold our peace, and let God fight our battles. You know what? Maybe let that come out after the fact. Maybe get through what you got to get through, and then when the dust settles, then let it come out in discovery. Then let it come out. You know what? Let your lawyer be your mouthpiece. My client didn't even know his mother passed away. But what did it best serve now to say, we didn't know and we forgive him? How's that going to be you going? You haven't even gone to the funeral yet. You haven't even gone to the wake yet. It's just stirring it all up. It didn't serve anybody. I think this is where you have to, in love, say to Jonathan, run silent, man. Run deep. Get through this. Then do what you got to do and stop piecemealing it. Take them out. Sue. Do what you got to do. But not like this anymore. Not like this anymore. Stand up, do what you've got to do. Take them all out, get discovery, get a lawyer, have every document from the board meetings pulled out, get the text messages and everything else, and put it all on display. And if it burns down Daystar, it burns down Daystar, and you'll be left with the rubble and you can build it up from the embers. But no more back channels. That's just my advice, because if you got a lawyer right now, the lawyer probably telling you to stop doing this. And I'm not saying this to criticize. I'm saying this because, listen, you're loved. You don't need it. Susie doesn't need it. Susie got a bad rap from day one. She don't need this.
Asked. From what? Strep throat? Hairline fractures? Not a word? Didn't even mention her the week that basically she dies. Doug is on set, smiling, laughing, doing his thing. Is she in Mexico or California? Why is the family not there? You know, you don't...
Let me just say something else. As somebody that used to be involved in public ministry, this really is the fault of the false image of most pastors and most ministries, that when something happened, they can't look human. That when something happens, you can't go before a congregation broken and cry and be in grief and let them see that natural pain and let them see you going through hell. No matter what, the Joni Lamb, Daystar, the Potter's House, okay, New Birth Ministry, whatever ministry it is, whatever this stuff happens, and even on the local level, we got to put on a brave front. We're the first family, and you guys know that. And that's, I think, is wrong, because it's putting out a false image that Jesus knows nothing about our pain, and that ministers don't operate in pain, and ministers don't operate in grief. And if you really come to teach that and believe that, then you don't know those epistles of Paul.
Don't just be fine and then die. You actually have a progression that doctors know. I've had friends that have watched parents pass, people that have watched others pass from cancer. And basically the last few days, it's all hands on deck.
Unless her heart stopped. Unless God showed up and said, that's it. Your soul is required of you. We don't know those details. We don't know if Joni was given a week and she had a week. And even if she was given a week, who really knows the mind of God? Nobody knows when the thief is going to show up. That's why they call the thief.
Be there. Make sure that you say everything that you need to say. This is the end.
Learn from that. That's what you should be learning from right now. To say the things you need to say the things you must say, to release those people that are carrying yokes that you put on them, or to have the yokes taken off of you by people that put them on you. Don't wait. You don't know when.
Your loved one. And come, join in, be there for them, hold their hand, sing with them, pray with them, let God fill the room in the power of the Holy Spirit. This is the final countdown. They're all on set, laughing and giddy. She's potentially in a complete...
Tears of a clown. Tears of a clown. Tears of a minister. That's what they do. The only man that I ever saw walk into a stage and preach at his wife's funeral was Oral Roberts. And when he did it, it moved my heart. He was broken up. He showed me what it means to be a spectacle for Christ. He showed me his heart for his wife. He showed me that it was okay. And months later, my wife passed away, and it was because of that I felt like I had a right to grieve the way I wanted to grieve. I'm still grieving, and I still have that right. But most people wanted me to put on the air. The board got mad at me because people were complaining I wouldn't preach. Because I wanted to stay home with my kids. I was getting complaints. People expected me to be out there. God didn't expect me to be out there. God told me to take as much time as I needed, and I did. And I'm glad I did for me and for my children.
Different country. Why? Okay, maybe Doug was protecting with Joni. Maybe the kids. One of the things, Tom Callender said when he called Jonathan is that, Joni wanted it this way. She didn't want anyone to know. I don't understand it because...
Hold on now. You got to understand that. Laura, you're not looking at both sides of it. You keep saying that you don't... I mean, put on your Joni hat. You may not like to put the Joni hat on. But Joni felt under siege. Joni felt attacked. Joni felt like she didn't have a friend outside of Daystar. Why was she going to put herself out there and feel like that people are going to be laughing at me going to the grave? Why would she take a chance, though she should have taken a chance, of reaching out to her son and being scared that perhaps, listen, maybe she was scared she'd be taped on her deathbed. I don't know. Maybe she felt like after they got off the phone with her, somebody would call you. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying we have to look at the circle. And I have to ask again, were they bombarding Joni to speak to them knowing she was on the way out?
Prayer is probably a really powerful thing.
Yes.
And we believe in a God of prayer. So putting the word out to say very early on that we have a problem, Joni did not think, and I have this from a source, she did not think that she would pass from this. She believed she would be okay. And that's how you have to believe when you get some sort of terrible diagnosis. You have to believe that you're going to be okay. You stand in faith and you gather the prayer of the saints around you. So when you're not doing that and Doug decides that...
Okay, but you have to take ownership. We have to take ownership. We have to ask ourselves why Joni didn't feel like she could have done that. I'm not saying what Joni did was right. But you have to look at it from all the circle. Joni didn't feel like she had any saints outside of Daystar to pray for her. And she was probably too scared. Listen, not only was she scared of what the influencers were saying, but Laura Lynn published a lot of letters that people were writing Daystar. So, I mean, I don't think that Joni really felt like she could do that. I'm not saying it was right. I'm saying that we have to look how this woman died. What was in her heart? What was on her mind?
What he will do, I mean, is he in charge as the leader of the home or not? I mean, did he not think, so he's living. We could only ask him, what happened here? Instead of saying, there's a serious issue, and we would ask you for prayer, you said it was a fracture of 2 vertebrae, and, she just needs your prayer as she recovers. Once again, what a pack of lies.
Listen, I think Daystar and the board of directors have a lot of questions to ask. And I think these questions are not going to go away. And I think that if they don't come out and say something, the truth, and they don't explain it, and if they don't deal with Jonathan, Daystar is going to fall apart. That's what I think. There's no way that people are going to let this go. Her death, the son not being told, Doug and the adultery. Where's Doug going to go now? Doug got money. Maybe Doug offed her. We're not sure. What's going to happen to the empire? If Daystar doesn't come out with reconciliation and show the world what a Christian company and a Christian ministry should be like, if they don't come back with that, then Daystar will fall. It may not fall tomorrow, but a year from now, 6 years from now, they're going to see a decline. And one day it'll just be a couple stations, and one day the lights will go out if they don't come out and make this right. But here is the bigger problem. People keep forgetting now because we keep talking about Jonathan going back there. This is not just about Jonathan, remember? This is about his daughter. Now, part of Daystar making this right will have to be giving up Joshua Brown, wouldn't you say? Because if I'm Jonathan, I want justice. That's part of my deal. You want me to walk away? I want justice. You want to pay me off? I want justice. You give me back the reins of this company, I'm getting justice. But we have to look at this, people. We have to understand. We have to be all about trying to figure this out, don't we? Now, I know some people are going to say I'm mean and I'm nasty. Please, in the name of Jesus, look at my heart. I'm trying to get you to see the circle. I'm trying to get you to see why this is happening. I'm trying to get you to see why you should look at yourself and how we need to really have some discernment and discerning natures. I'm trying to get you to see that sometimes it's okay to say, you know what, Laura, I don't know if you should have said that. Pastor Ray, I don't know if you should have said that. Kenobi, I don't know if what few people I have do not stop telling me when I'm wrong. Or when they think I'm wrong. The difference is I go to it and I reason and I talk and I try. Call me a lunatic, I still will try to reach you. But I think we have to really look at what is an idol in our heart. Who are our idols? Who are we following? Who are we listening to? Are they able and are they free from failure? Are they not flawed too in this shell of flesh? Can they not make mistakes too? And when they do, who's there to check them? Who's watching the watchers? Who's bringing truth to the truth tellers? Because I would like to see somebody say in some of this, as a community, we have to really look at how we acted too. These things happen to them as examples and were written down as warnings for us on whom the culmination of the ages has come. So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. Until again, like and subscribe or leave me a comment. Good or bad, I'll take it all.